The series starts with Pi Ya Nuo, a young woman whose life was changed by a fake prophecy. Her parents were tricked by a fortune teller into raising her as a boy until her 26th birthday to avoid a curse. Now, she's just days away from finally being herself again. Meanwhile, Tsu Feng, who was saved from drowning when he was young, was later adopted by Guangzhou, a respected mafia leader. After Guangzhou died, Tsu Feng took over his criminal empire and has been searching for the girl who saved his life, keeping a hairpin as a reminder. Their paths cross when Ya Nuo, still disguised as a boy, is working at a sausage stand with her friend Guang Chao, who doesn't know her secret. She sees Tsu Feng fighting with some thugs and, without hesitation, jumps in to help, showing impressive fighting skills. Grateful, Tsu Feng offers her a spot in his amusement park to sell sausages rent-free, but Ya Nuo declines, not wanting to get involved with the mafia. Later, Ya Nuo saves Tsu Feng's sister, Tu Zihan, from danger. Mrs. Tu, Tsu Feng's clever mother, notices her daughter's interest in Ya Nuo and invites Ya Nuo and Guang Chao for dinner. During the meal, Mrs. Tu suggests that Ya Nuo become friends with her son, believing he needs company. Touched, Ya Nuo agrees. Things take a turn when Mrs. Tu arranges a temple celebration and convinces Ya Nuo and Tsu Feng to become sworn siblings through a blood pact. The next day, Ya Nuo meets Wei Qingyang, Tsu Feng's childhood friend, and they enjoy shooting clay pigeons together. Mrs. Tu had described Tsu Feng as a lonely person, but Ya Nuo finds it funny given his friendly nature. Meanwhile, Zihan, now crushing on Ya Nuo, tries to flirt, but Ya Nuo, still pretending to be a boy, says she already has a girlfriend. Zihan demands that Ya Nuo bring her girlfriend to Mrs. Tu's upcoming birthday party. Ya Nuo ends up attending with her cousin fan Xiao Jing, who pretends to be her partner. At the event, Xiao Jing leaves briefly, giving Ya Nuo a raffle ticket that wins her a dance with Tsu Feng, leading to an awkward but key moment. When Xiao Jing returns and sees Ya Nuo dancing with Tsu Feng, she playfully uses Guang Chao to push Ya Nuo, causing Ya Nuo to accidentally kiss Tsu Feng. Both are embarrassed. Tsu Feng quickly leaves, and Ya Nuo rushes out, followed by Xiao Jing, who teases her about the kiss. Ya Nuo denies having any feelings for Tsu Feng. A few days later, during the annual memorial cruise for Tsu Feng's late father, who died in a sea accident 7 years ago, Ya Nuo and her friends unexpectedly meet Tsu Feng and his family. Tsu Feng, wanting to be kind, offers his cabin to his friend, hoping to give the couple some privacy. But as the day ends, they find Xiao Jing and Zihan drunk in his room, forcing Tsu Feng and Ya Nuo to share a small, uncomfortable cabin. On the same cruise, Qin Yang is surprised when Yang Na approaches him at the coffee station. She compliments his coffee skills, saying she's also a barista and even pretends to have a serious illness just to taste his coffee. The next morning, Zihan causes trouble by playing a video where Xiao Jing admits that Ya Nuo is just her cousin, forcing Ya Nuo and Xiao Jing to tell the truth. After they get off the ship, Tsu Feng drives Ya Nuo to a quiet mountain spot that he often visits. There, Tsu Feng shares a story about the girl who saved him from drowning when he was young, a story very similar to Ya Nuo's own experience. Ya Nuo is touched but keeps her secret and comforts him without revealing her identity. Later, when Guang Chao's sausage truck is stolen, Tsu Feng and his sister offer jobs at the amusement park to Ya Nuo and Guang Chao. Even though Mrs. P is worried about her daughter working for a mafia leader, she eventually trusts Ya Nuo when she accepts the role of special assistant. That same day, Na, now working at the park, visits Qin Yang's coffee bar and tries a coffee that reminds her of her late mother's cooking. Overwhelmed with emotion, she leaves without paying, and Qin Yang runs after her. When Qin Yang catches up, Na suddenly faints. He quickly takes her to the hospital, where he learns that she has cancer. Wanting to cheer her up, he offers to make one of her wishes come true. Na, touched by his kindness, says she wants to send a paper airplane from a rooftop, hoping it will fly to the sky and cure her illness. Moved by her wish, they spend the afternoon making and flying paper airplanes, each one carrying her hope for recovery. During this touching moment, a paper airplane accidentally hits Qin Yang's eye, but it doesn't ruin the day. Thanks to Qin Yang, Na enjoys the moment and learns to make the coffee she loves, capturing the happy memories of her mother. Meanwhile, outside the amusement park, Ya Nuo finds out that a magazine is spreading false stories about Su Feng and his family, labeling them as dangerous gangsters. Angry, she storms into the magazine office, demanding they take back their lies. But the editor mocks her and locks her on the rooftop as it starts to rain. Hours pass, and the editor forgets about Ya Nuo, leaving her locked on the rooftop. As the evening falls, Su Feng realizes she is missing. Worried, he jumps from a nearby rooftop to reach her, hurting his arm in the process and braving the bad weather to keep her warm. Just then, firefighters arrive to rescue them. After making sure she is safe, a doctor tells Su Feng that Ya Nuo is fine, but Su Feng is not convinced. When the doctor steps away to double-check his diagnosis, he almost reveals Ya Nuo's true identity. But her parents arrive just in time and cleverly change the topic, protecting her secret. In her hospital room, they give Ya Nuo a resignation letter, urging her to quit her job and cut ties with Su Feng. Ya Nuo tells her parents that Su Feng didn't know she went to confront the magazine and apologizes for the trouble she caused. Outside the magazine office, Su Feng waits for the editor. When the editor comes out, Su Feng confronts him and beats him up for insulting his father and mistreating Ya Nuo. Before leaving, he warns him not to do it again. Later, Su Feng and his sister visit Ya Nuo's home, bringing gifts for her family, hoping to win their favor. Things get awkward when Zihan grabs Ya Nuo's hand and tells her she wants to be her girlfriend. Even though Ya Nuo says no, Zihan doesn't give up and keeps trying. Feeling trapped, Ya Nuo tells everyone that she likes men, surprising her parents and the siblings. But this doesn't stop Zihan, who shows up at Ya Nuo's office the next day with flowers, still trying to win her over. Ya Nuo repeats that she is not interested in women, but Zihan remains persistent. Zihan's actions make Su Feng uncomfortable, and he starts keeping his distance from Ya Nuo, avoiding physical contact. Feeling the need to explain, Ya Nuo tells Su Feng that she only said she liked men to make Zihan back off, but she's not sure it will work. Soon after, Su Feng gets a call about a sick animal at the amusement park. He and Ya Nuo rush to find Dr. Lao to help the ill goat. During the visit, the vet recognizes Ya Nuo, remembering their friendship from childhood. It turns out that Chu Zhirue has known Ya Nuo's secret for years, after overhearing a conversation between her and Xiao Jing when they were kids. Later, Ya Nuo, hoping to change their bad luck, suggests that Su Feng visit the hot springs. At the hot springs, Ya Nuo goes with Su Feng, Zhirue, and Guangchao, but she feels uneasy about getting into the water. Zhirue, knowing why she's hesitant, convinces her by pointing out private pools. However, when the guys decide to join her in the only available pool and start undressing, Ya Nuo gets uncomfortable and rushes to leave. On her way out, her towel gets caught on a branch. Zhirue quickly helps her get free, so she can leave without further embarrassment. Later, at the amusement park, Zhirue asks Ya Nuo to play a fairy in a show. She agrees, and her feminine appearance surprises Zihan. Su Feng, seeing her in a wig and dress, jokingly says he would be interested in her if she were a woman, making Ya Nuo feel nervous. The next day, Su Feng, Ya Nuo, and Qing Yang attend an important meeting with Wu Hansheng. During the meeting, they talk briefly about an annual event involving 3 powerful families. Hansheng then suggests a challenge, a 2-on-2 fight, pulling Ya Nuo and Su Feng into the competition. The fight is watched by the family members, and Ya Nuo and Su Feng win. Afterward, Hansheng talks with his father, Mr. Wu, who advises him that the best way to hurt Su Feng is to cause problems between him and Ya Nuo. Meanwhile, Zihan tries again to get Ya Nuo's attention by pretending to fall and land in her lap, but Su Feng steps in just in time to stop the awkward moment. In another scene, Zhirue, after treating a puppy, quietly confesses his feelings, planning to tell Ya Nuo he loves her once she returns to living as a woman. Ya Nuo, who is standing nearby, overhears part of his words. Zhirue realizes she's there, and his face shows both shock and worry, but he's relieved to know that Ya Nuo hasn't heard his full confession to the puppy. The next day, Hang Chao, Ya Nuo, Su Feng, and Zihan set off on a hiking trip, later joined by Nan Na and Qing Yang. As they start climbing, Zihan struggles with the hike, not being used to such hard activity. The group decides to take a break. At the campsite, Zihan surprises everyone by coming out of her tent wearing an evening gown and high heels, trying to impress Ya Nuo. However, Ya Nuo doesn't react as she hoped. Later, Zihan convinces Hang Chao to let Ya Nuo sleep alone in their tent, which confuses him, but he agrees. Meanwhile, Su Feng goes down a cliff to retrieve a small box that Ya Nuo dropped. On his way back, he slips, gets hurt, and falls into the river. Seeing the rope he used, Ya Nuo gets worried and calls out to him. Hearing his reply, she climbs down to help him back to camp. At the camp, Su Feng, now sick with a fever, rests in his tent. Ya Nuo lies next to him to share her body heat and help warm him up. The next morning, Zihan sees Ya Nuo leaving her brother's tent and immediately confronts her, asking if she has feelings for Su Feng. She quickly assumes the worst and runs away before Ya Nuo can explain. Later, when Ya Nuo and Su Feng go to fetch water, they are attacked by someone hiding in the trees. Qin Yang steps in to help, and they realize someone is following them with bad intentions towards Su Feng. Back in the city, Su Feng visits Ya Nuo's house to get water and notices a calendar marked "Welcome Home, Daughter." When he asks about it, Ya Nuo quickly says it's counting down to her sister's return from overseas. Curious, Su Feng looks around Ya Nuo's room and finds bras and feminine products, wrongly thinking that Ya Nuo has a girlfriend. His misunderstanding shows his somewhat naive thinking. That evening, Su Feng tries to talk to Zihan about her crush on Ya Nuo, but the conversation shifts when she asks if he likes Ya Nuo. Su Feng admits that he does, which leads Zihan to point out how much happier he has been since meeting Ya Nuo, suggesting he might be in love. These words unsettled Su Feng, and he vents his feelings on a punching bag as he wrestles with the idea of being in love with someone he believes to be a boy. Elsewhere, Ya Nuo talks with Xiao Jing about her mixed feelings, making her cousin curious. When Xiao Jing pushes for details, Ya Nuo admits she feels strange emotions towards her sworn brother, and Xiao Jing concludes that Ya Nuo is falling in love. Wanting to embrace her true self, Ya Nuo wears a feminine outfit the next day and goes to a hotel with her cousin to practice walking and acting like a woman after pretending to be a boy for so long. Without knowing, Su Feng is also at the hotel. Panicking, Ya Nuo hides to avoid being seen in her girly clothes. Meanwhile, Su Feng, in a separate incident, kisses Qin Yang to see if he has feelings for men, but he feels nothing. This confirms to his friend that his true feelings are for Ya Nuo. The next morning, while eating with Zhirue, Ya Nuo accidentally gets mustard on her lips. Zhirue wipes it off with a napkin, catching Su Feng's attention and making him jealous. Su Feng quickly interrupts, pretending they have a meeting to get Ya Nuo away from Zhirue. Later, in a crowded elevator, Ya Nuo and Su Feng are squeezed close together, and Ya Nuo briefly holds his hand, creating a tender moment. As they leave the building, a young man suddenly runs by and steals an envelope from Ya Nuo, which has important papers. Su Feng and Ya Nuo chase after the thief. When Ya Nuo picks up the dropped envelope, Su Feng spots a sniper aiming at her from far away. Su Feng runs to protect Ya Nuo, taking the hit meant for her, which turns out to be a paintball. Shocked, Ya Nuo hugs Su Feng, scared of losing him. Later, Su Feng confronts Han Sheng, who reveals that the attacker was a man seeking revenge for losing in the previous fight. Han Sheng starts beating the man as punishment, but Su Feng stops him, which annoys Han Sheng. Before leaving, Su Feng warns Han Sheng not to hurt Ya Nuo, promising to punish anyone who tries. That night, Su Feng struggles to tie his necktie in the office, and Ya Nuo steps in to help him, bringing them close together and creating a tense but intimate moment. A few days later, Su Feng and Ya Nuo go to a dinner hosted by Han Sheng, who uses the event to apologize to Ya Nuo for the shooting incident. During dinner, Han Sheng offers Ya Nuo a drink, but Su Feng warns him that Ya Nuo has a low tolerance for alcohol. Ya Nuo, defiant, drinks it anyway, and Su Feng drinks along with her. Throughout the meal, Han Sheng notices Ya Nuo quietly serving small portions to her cousin, which makes him curious. After dinner, Su Feng tells Ya Nuo that Han Sheng was once a close cousin, but they became distant after Han Sheng tried to take his position in the family business. As Ya Nuo fixes Su Feng's collar, Han Sheng watches, misunderstanding their closeness and thinking they are romantically involved based on photos he has seen of them together. Later, Ya Nuo talks with Qin Yang, who asks about Su Feng's feelings. Su Feng says he believes that love goes beyond gender and admits he can't imagine life without Ya Nuo. Qin Yang comforts him, promising to support him no matter what he decides about his feelings for Ya Nuo. During a bus tour around the amusement park, a pregnant woman suddenly goes into labor. Remembering that Su Feng once helped deliver animal births, Ya Nuo urges him to help. Nervous but determined, Su Feng agrees and asks the driver to stop the bus. He moves the passengers to the front, making room at the back, and assists the woman while following instructions from a doctor on the phone. Together, they deliver the babies safely, and Su Feng and Ya Nuo are deeply moved, with tears in their eyes, as the passengers cheer. After the ambulance arrives and takes the mother and baby away, Su Feng tells Ya Nuo how the experience reminded him of the pressure he felt when he had to take over his family's business after his father went missing. Ya Nuo reassures him, holding his hand and promising to support him in the future. Feeling grateful, the mafia boss invites Ya Nuo to dinner that night, and she happily agrees. Later, Su Feng tries to practice confessing his feelings to Ya Nuo but gets too nervous. Instead, he decides to write her a letter to express his emotions. Meanwhile, at her office, Ya Nuo is surprised when Guang Chao shows up with books about same-sex relationships, including an adult comic that shocks her. While reacting to the comic, Ya Nuo accidentally calls Su Feng's office phone, and their conversation plays out over the line. During the call, she tells Guang Chao that although she respects gay relationships, she can't see herself in one. She explains that her actions at the camp with Su Feng were just friendly support. Hearing this, Su Feng becomes sad, stops writing his letter, and throws it away. He then doesn't show up for their planned dinner, which makes Ya Nuo confront him about why he's avoiding her. During their argument, Ya Nuo admits her feelings for him. Su Feng responds by saying he likes her too, but only as a sibling. Feeling hurt, Ya Nuo later tells her cousin about her confession and Su Feng's response. Xiao Jing encourages her, suggesting that once Ya Nuo returns to being herself as a woman, Su Feng's feelings might change. Thinking about this, Ya Nuo looks at her calendar and sees that only 47 days remain until her 26th birthday, when she can finally live as a woman again. The next day, Su Feng meets with Zhirue at the amusement park. Zhirue talks about having feelings for someone he can't be with yet and hopes to confess when the time is right. Their conversation is interrupted by Ya Nuo's arrival, and Su Feng can't hide his jealousy as he watches Zhirue interact with her. Later, Ya Nuo visits Su Feng in his office with lunch. Although she says she's not hungry, Su Feng encourages her to eat. They end up sharing a spoon, and some food accidentally gets on Ya Nuo's lips. This scene reminds Su Feng of a similar moment between Ya Nuo and Zhirue, which makes him feel jealous again. Soon after, a group of young fans approaches them, but Ya Nuo gets a call warning her that reporters are in the park because of leaked photos suggesting she and Su Feng are romantically involved. In the chaos, Zhirue steps in and tells the reporters that he is the one who has feelings for Ya Nuo, saying his love for her started in childhood. He explains that Ya Nuo has never returned his feelings because of her preferences, which shifts the reporters' focus away from her and Su Feng. Later, in the office, Su Feng thanks Zhirue for helping and asks if what he told the reporters was true, recalling their earlier conversation. Before Zhirue can answer, Ya Nuo walks in. When alone with Su Feng, Ya Nuo asks him who could be behind the leaked photos. They both suspect Han Sheng. Shortly after, Ya Nuo sends Hang Chao to give Su Feng a letter, which turns out to be her resignation. Hang Chao warns that Ya Nuo is planning to leave for Japan, prompting Su Feng to rush to the airport with Qin Yang. At the airport, Su Feng confronts Ya Nuo, tearing up her ticket and insisting that she won't resign or leave. He reminds her of her promise to stay by his side, showing a more forceful side of himself. He then takes her to his car, only letting go of her hand when Qin Yang leaves to give them privacy. Outside, Su Feng pulls Ya Nuo close and warns her not to try leaving again, hinting that he might react more strongly next time. After this intense moment, Su Feng takes her to a restaurant and cooks for her, as a way of thanking her for staying, even though he pressured her, and to continue working with him at the park. As Ya Nuo eats, Su Feng tells her how important she is to him, admitting that the thought of her leaving scared him. She moves closer, touching her forehead to his, and promises that she won't try to leave again. Meanwhile, in another part of the story, Nana meets Nan Xing Tian, Su Feng's uncle and her estranged father. Xing Tian, who left her mother when she was pregnant, now wants to reconnect and asks Nana to live with him, hoping to make up for lost time as her father. Nana, skeptical of his sudden offer, tells him that she will only forgive him if he pays her $20 million. Later, Nana goes to Su Feng's office after he hears about her meeting with Xing Tian. Understanding her condition, Su Feng gives her a signed check for $20 million, suggesting she use it as a way to move in with Xing Tian and give him a month to prove himself as her father. After thinking it over, Nana agrees to the arrangement and takes the check. That evening, during her cousin's birthday celebration, Ya Nuo is asked to embrace her true self as a woman and join the party. Coincidentally, their dinner takes place near Su Feng's, who walks by without recognizing Ya Nuo, as he is focused on meeting Zihan. Meanwhile, at Xing Tian's home, he eagerly waits for Nana. Even though she is there, she keeps her distance and remains cold towards his efforts to connect. After dinner, Ya Nuo and her cousin enjoy the Christmas lights outside and stop at a glowing sphere to make wishes. Ya Nuo silently wishes to see Su Feng, but feels disappointed when he doesn't appear. However, Su Feng is nearby. He spots her but hesitates to approach. Ya Nuo's wish comes true when Su Feng suddenly appears and calls her by name. Surprised, Ya Nuo pretends not to understand, and her cousin steps in, introducing her as Ya Nuo's sister, surprising Su Feng because of how much they look alike. Soon after, Xiao Jing leaves, saying she has to go, and Ya Nuo is left alone with Su Feng. He suggests they take a walk, and they stroll through the city streets decorated with festive lights. Later, Su Feng drives Ya Nuo home and casually invites her out again. Despite her worries about revealing her secret, Ya Nuo agrees. The next day at the amusement park, Su Feng asks Ya Nuo to join him and his sister for dinner. Ya Nuo says no, explaining that her mom is upset about the leaked photos, but she encourages him to spend time with his sister. During their talk, Zhirui arrives and is confused when Su Feng mentions Ya Nuo's sister. Su Feng brushes it off, and Zhirui plays along. Later, Ya Nuo tells Zhirui that she doesn't actually have a sister and apologizes for putting him in a tricky situation. Zhirui reassures her that he is committed to protecting her secret. At dinner, Su Feng is surprised by Ya Nuo's feminine look and how much she resembles her supposed brother. He jokingly asks about her taste in men, hinting at whether she would like someone like him. As they eat, Zhirui suggests that Su Feng and Ya Nuo explore the neighborhood after their meal, an idea they both agree to quietly. After dinner, Su Feng takes Ya Nuo to the harbor, where they make wishes, and he again comments on how much she looks like Ya Nuo. The next day, Xing Tian tries to connect with Nana over lunch, but she keeps her distance, saying she only moved in because she had to. This leaves Xing Tian feeling sad as he leaves. Meanwhile, while walking with Ya Nuo, Su Feng sees his long-lost father near a fountain and runs to hug him, but his father doesn't recognize him and seems to have lost his memory. Though confused, Ya Nuo encourages Su Feng to bring his father home. At home, they try to help him remember using a necklace, but he insists he doesn't remember anything. In a touching moment, Su Feng kneels to tie his father's shoes, recalling past times they shared. His father almost reaches out as if he remembers, but then pulls back. When Su Feng begs him to come home, his father says he already has a home somewhere else, showing he feels disconnected from Su Feng. Feeling defeated, Su Feng tells his father he is always welcome to visit the wishing fountain, which brings a brief smile to his father's face. Meanwhile, Nana meets Qing Yang, who tells her that her father left the house to give her space. Encouraged, Nana goes outside to find Xing Tian, and seeing him waiting in the cold, she shows concern, which makes him happy. The next morning, Su Feng is getting ready to see his father when Ya Nuo interrupts him with a game of basketball to lift his mood. The game helps Su Feng relax. Later, they go to visit his father, who enjoys tea served by Ya Nuo while Su Feng sits with them. During their time together, Su Feng calls the man dad, and it seems to affect his father. That evening, Su Feng is at Ya Nuo's home, and during a playful pillow fight, they end up on the bed and almost kiss, but Ya Nuo's father walks in unexpectedly. After that, Ya Nuo sleeps next to her mom, while Tsu Feng stays with Ya Nuo's father, keeping them apart. Late at night, Ya Nuo sees Tsu Feng outside, lost in thought, and brings him a blanket, warning him about the cold. Tsu Feng pulls Ya Nuo close, wrapping the blanket around her to keep her warm. They go back inside and sit on the sofa, talking until they both fall asleep. The next day, while having tea with Mr. Wu, he asks if Tsu Feng is really his son. Ya Nuo explains that Tsu Feng is his adopted son from the age of 10, not by birth. During a fishing trip with Tsu Feng's father, Ya Nuo's coat gets caught on a fishing hook, and Tsu Feng quickly helps her. When Ya Nuo starts to speak, Tsu Feng gently touches her chin, signaling her to stay quiet, which impresses Mr. Wu. Mr. Wu then comments on the strong bond between Tsu Feng and Ya Nuo. Tsu Feng admits that Ya Nuo means much more to him than just a sworn sibling, and that he can't imagine life without her. Mr. Wu, seeing this, becomes convinced that Tsu Feng is truly in love with Ya Nuo, leaving Tsu Feng momentarily speechless. That evening, Tsu Feng cooks the fish they caught earlier. Ya Nuo joins him in the kitchen and asks him to teach her how to cook. Tsu Feng happily shows her, and at one point, he wraps his arms around her to demonstrate how to stir properly. Just then, Mr. Wu walks into the kitchen, sees them in this close moment, but quietly leaves without saying anything. The next day, Ya Nuo, Tsu Feng, Nana, Qin Yang, and Guangzhu gather at Mr. Wu's cabin. When Qin Yang reintroduces himself, Mr. Wu admits he doesn't remember him. Ya Nuo explains that Qin Yang and Tsu Feng have been friends since they were children, because their fathers were also friends, but Mr. Wu still doesn't recall. Xiao Jing arrives shortly after with cards for a group game that cheers everyone up. During the game, Tsu Feng and Ya Nuo are dared to kiss, and they move closer as everyone watches, recording the moment on their phones. Despite the audience, they kiss, surprising everyone around them. Right after, Guangzhu's companion shows up, signaling it's time to leave. Later, Tsu Feng and Ya Nuo confront Han Sheng, asking if he was behind the photos in the magazines. Han Sheng deflects the blame, pointing to Zhirue. Ya Nuo, unsure, talks to Zhirue, who appears scared and admits he was behind it, saying he acted out of fear of losing her. Although surprised, the group accepts his confession. The next day, Ya Nuo and Mr. Wu are at the amusement park, admiring a fountain when Mr. Wu notices Zihan nearby. Ya Nuo reveals that Zihan is his daughter, stirring forgotten memories. Touched, Ya Nuo suggests that Mr. Wu visit the hospital for a checkup, and he agrees. Later, Ya Nuo confronts Zhirue to understand his confession. Zhirue admits he wasn't forced but acted out of jealousy because he loves her. Feeling let down, Ya Nuo walks away, disappointed. Meanwhile, Nana takes Qin Yang to see a house and reveals the real reason behind her $20 million demand. It was the house where she grew up with her late mother, which deeply moves Qin Yang. That night, Ya Nuo shares her doubts with Tsu Feng, insisting that Zhirue would never purposely hurt her. Tsu Feng reassures her, saying he will trust Zhirue if she does. The next day, Ya Nuo goes with Mr. Wu to Tsu Feng's workplace, where his mother and sister become emotional upon seeing him, having looked for him for years. Zihan rushes to hug him, begging him to come home. Mr. Wu, saying he has amnesia, refuses, but Tsu Feng promises to help him regain his memories, and Mr. Wu calmly agrees. Later, Tsu Feng takes Ya Nuo to a boutique to pick a wedding dress for his mother, who is planning to renew her vows for her 30th anniversary. He asks Ya Nuo to try on the dresses so he can see how they look. Impressed by how beautiful she looks in the first dress, Tsu Feng decides to buy it right away. In the afternoon, Tsu Feng organizes a family gathering, hoping it will help Mr. Wu remember his past. The only person who seems to trigger any memories is Han Sheng, but Mr. Wu only recalls seeing him recently in a parking lot, hinting that Han Sheng might be hiding something about his uncle's disappearance. The day ends with Mr. Wu's medical report revealing a scar on his head and amnesia caused by psychological trauma. Though shocked, the family decides to relax and enjoy some dessert together. That night, while admiring the holiday lights, Tsu Feng and Ya Nuo stop at a pumpkin display and talk about the story of Cinderella. Ya Nuo playfully pretends to be part of the fairy tale, and Su Feng declares himself as her protective prince. Surprised, Ya Nuo questions how she fits as Cinderella since she sees herself as male, but Su Feng doesn't reply with words. Instead, he kisses her, marking the start of their romance. The next day at the office, Ya Nuo asks Su Feng to keep their relationship a secret for now, and he agrees, although reluctantly. Later, Ya Nuo meets Jirue and learns that Han Sheng forced him to take the blame for the photo scandal. Determined, Ya Nuo confronts Han Sheng and challenges him to a fight. Han Sheng accepts but is shocked when Ya Nuo not only holds her own, but defeats him. She warns him not to hurt Jirue again, threatening to involve the police if it happens. Later, Ya Nuo visits Jirue at the vet's office with Su Feng, who is clearly jealous of her friendship with Jirue. Later, while Ya Nuo drives her mother's hot dog cart, with Su Feng following in his car, the brakes fail, causing a crash that leaves Ya Nuo unconscious. Su Feng quickly takes her to the hospital, and she wakes up with no serious injuries. Guangzhou soon arrives with a memory card showing footage of Han Sheng paying someone to sabotage the cart. Su Feng confronts Han Sheng at a bar, hitting him hard but staying calm when Han Sheng doesn't fight back. The next day, Ya Nuo gives Su Feng a scarf that matches hers and gently wraps it around his neck, leading to a warm hug. Unseen by them, Feng watches the tender moment through a slightly open door, thinking deeply about what she witnessed. That evening, during dinner with Su Feng's family, Ya Nuo suggests to Mr. Wu the idea of recreating the wedding photos he and Su Feng took 30 years ago to create new memories. Mr. Wu is excited about the idea, hoping to bring joy to his wife. The next morning, Zihan and Su Feng surprise their mother with a photo session at a bridal shop for their parents' anniversary. The photo shoot fills Feng with happiness as she celebrates with her family. Later, Ya Nuo and Su Feng visit Mr. Wu at his home, where Mr. Wu gives Su Feng a cufflink that was found with him when he was rescued. Su Feng tells his father that the cufflink isn't his, hinting that it might be connected to Mr. Wu's mysterious past. Meanwhile, Qin Yang takes Nana out before her urgent surgery as her health has worsened. He kisses her forehead, showing how deeply he cares as they face her health issues together. Soon after, Su Feng goes to a fireworks company to meet with the manager but has to wait. During this time, Han Sheng tells an assistant to give Su Feng a glass of water. After drinking it, Su Feng feels unwell and notices a white powder at the bottom of the glass. He collapses before he can ask for help. Han Sheng's men carry the unconscious Su Feng into the fireworks warehouse and set it on fire. Luckily, Jirue hears the explosions and rushes to help. Despite falling and getting hurt, Jirue manages to save Su Feng, carrying him out safely while Su Feng remains unharmed. After a long journey, Mr. Wu visits Xing Tian, who shows him the cufflink Su Feng found, asking if he recognizes it, as it might help solve Mr. Wu's past. Mr. Wu looks at it, but says he doesn't know where it came from. Later, Mr. Wu confronts his son, Han Sheng, accusing him of hurting him. Han Sheng admits he did it to try to make his own family more powerful than Su Feng's. Heartbroken by his son's actions, Mr. Wu points a gun at Han Sheng, but can't bring himself to shoot. Later, Ya Nuo and Su Feng see Su Feng's assistant secretly talking with Han Sheng's men. Suspicious, they follow them and discover that the assistant was taken to a place connected to Han Sheng, who had planned the meeting at the fireworks factory to kill Su Feng. As Ya Nuo and Su Feng confront Han Sheng and his men, Han Sheng orders his men to kill them. But Qin Yang arrives just in time with a group of soldiers to protect Su Feng. Outnumbered, Han Sheng is forced to give up and is expelled from the family business by Su Feng. The next morning, Qin Yang gives Su Feng a list of people who bought the cufflinks, which were part of a limited set. One of the buyers was Mr. Wu, Su Feng's uncle. Su Feng quickly arranges a meeting with the three families to confront Mr. Wu about the cufflink. Mr. Wu doesn't deny it. He admits his role in his own disappearance and the disappearance of Qin Yang's parents. He gives a brief apology and leaves without explaining further. Later, Han Sheng learns from the news that his father has turned himself in, confessing to crimes he didn't commit to protect his son. Furious, Han Sheng tries to shoot Su Feng in the office parking lot, but Ya Nuo stops him just in time. Su Feng then offers to give up his leadership position to Han Sheng, but Han Sheng refuses and walks away. Consumed by guilt, Han Sheng later goes to the police to clear his father's name, leading to the arrest of the real criminal. Meanwhile, after her successful surgery, Nana returns to the house she once shared with her mother. She finds out that her father bought the house after her mother passed away, which deeply moves her. On the night before Ya Nuo's 26th birthday, Su Feng proposes to her. Before she can answer, their families appear to witness the moment, and Ya Nuo happily accepts his proposal. On her birthday, Su Feng reads a letter from Ya Nuo, where she reveals that she is actually a woman. When they meet, Ya Nuo is surprised to find that Su Feng already knew. He tells her that he had overheard a conversation between her and Jirue, but chose to respect her privacy. In the next scene, Su Feng and Ya Nuo get married, surrounded by their family and friends, showing that their relationship has grown from a brotherly bond to a deep, loving partnership that goes beyond gender and appearances. So the moral of the story is sometimes pretending to be someone you're not can get you a mafia job, make people fall in love with you. And even when a fight or two, just be careful not to accidentally kiss your sworn brother and end up married to him.